Well, today we're going to talk about a couple of interesting cases. We've got the O'Keefe Media Group did an undercover sting with the Glenn Prager, who was the original investigator in the Epstein files. We're going to talk about Joy Reid has a brand new podcast. If you can believe it, yes, she has a podcast. And she says some really interesting things on her podcast about not paying income tax. We've got the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, literally calling generals and admirals fat, and they need to start doing some PT. Walmart has some pretty cool-ass drones. They announced this in June of 2025, and they're going all over the place. So you got to be ready for this. So stick around. You just might learn something. Well, I'm Eric T. Welcome to the Eric T. Conversation. James O'Keefe had an investigator go undercover and get introduced to Glenn Prager. Now, Glenn Prager is the original investigator for the Epstein case. Early 2000, when Jeffrey Epstein was originally got caught doing what he was doing with underage girls. So if you don't know, I'm going to give a little bit of background on this guy because he's an interesting character. He was there for the entire investigation. He's the one that actually put the case together for the prosecutor, Alex Acosta, who was then the federal prosecutor who gave Jeffrey Epstein a very light and easy sentence. Like, he didn't even have to go serve time in jail. I mean, he was only on the weekends that he served jail, then the rest of the time he was out. So what happened was this guy, he actually interviewed all of the witnesses for the Epstein case. He interviewed them. He knows exactly who was involved. He knows all the people that were the big players in it. And he knows the deals that were put in place during the Epstein case in that early 2005. So he knows where all the bodies are buried, essentially. So when the investigator from the O'Keefe Media Group went and found them kind of at an airport, it was some interesting things that he had said. Number one, he cleared Donald Trump's name, hands down in that. He cleared Donald Trump's name. He actually went after Bill Clinton. He, implicated Bill Clinton in the whole thing as well. And he also said that the guy was worked for the CIA, that he was worked for Israel and the United States as an agent. So here's a couple of things I'm going to play for you right now. That the first thing I'm going to play for you is when he was asked about Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. And this is what he said about Donald Trump. Check this out.
Somebody's protecting a lot of people because Trump's now saying it's a hoax of the case, like a hoax or something. I mean, come on, it's not a hoax. He's been on the plane, many times. Mm-hmm. It's just he was never on the plane with the kids. I've seen the itineraries.
So as you can see there, that he basically says that Donald Trump was on the plane, that obviously wasn't any kind of hoax or anything like that, but he was on the plane, but he was never involved with any children, any incidences where they were assaulting any children. So this guy was the main investigator of the entire Epstein case in early 2000s. And he just cleared Donald Trump. So let's put the whole Donald Trump is on the Epstein files to rest. Now, we did say Donald Trump is, in fact, protecting some big players. And I probably believe that's true. I don't know that for sure. But this guy was the investigator and he was undercover. And, I don't think him as lying about the whole case or trying to make himself look better. Was he? I don't think so. He was just having a chit chat with a young lady at the airport and he was confessing to all kinds of stuff. So basically what this guy did, and he talks about it in the whole case, is that Jeffrey Epstein had a lot of money. And these individuals, these young ladies that were involved in this, were getting paid off by the droves, okay? He was getting paid off in droves. A lot of these ladies were paid between $100,000 and $500,000 each to sing a different tune when the prosecutors were going after Jeffrey Epstein. Some of the investigators, when they found out that these girls decided to change their minds, they recanted some of their stories, even though they had filed original complaints against Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, she was involved in this case because she was the one that actually perpetrated and actually went and sought out these young ladies. There's an incident that happened in Mar-a-Lago. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump, but they were in Mar-a-Lago, and this young lady worked in Mar-a-Lago. Her father kind of got her a job there. And while she was working in Mar-a-Lago, she was reading a book on massages. If you can believe that, coincidental. She was reading a book about massages. Ghislaine Maxwell approached her and said, "Hey, do you like giving massages? Do you want to be a masseuse?" The young lady was like, "Yes, I want to become a masseuse one day. So I'm reading a book on it." She goes, "Well, my client likes to get a massage. Why don't you come over? You can do massages for him and he can give you some credentials and he can help you probably pay for school if you want." She said, "Okay." And that's how it all started. So Ghislaine Maxwell was heavily involved in soliciting some of these young ladies. But this stuff was all pushed under the rug during the whole Epstein case in 2005. So Alex Acosta was the main perpetrator. He was a federal prosecutor. So all those guys are thinking that Pam Bondi was involved. She wasn't involved. She wasn't even a state attorney at the time. It was Alex Acosta who was a federal prosecutor. And this guy, Glenn Prager, was a federal investigator for the DOJ. So he knows all of this. Federal prosecutor, federal investigator, and this is information that these guys got. What happened was they found out that these individuals were not going to do what they said they were going to do. These people were paid off. So they're recanting all of their stories. But what he did say was just pretty interesting. He told them that he said Epstein was a CIA agent. They knew that. And take a listen. This is what he says about that.
It's not talked about yet, but it'll soon come out that he was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA
Or he wasn't a CIA. It's not talked about yet, but it'll soon come out that he was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA
Or he wasn't a CIA.
So you can see right there, he's telling you from his investigation as a federal DOJ prosecutor or investigator, that he actually knows that Jeffrey Epstein worked for the CIA. So there's a lot of things that are going on here that we need to peel back the onions and these layers and get into the root of it. Because look, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, these guys, before they became working for the federal government, they were talking heads, right? Now, Kash Patel did actually work for the federal government. He was with the DOJ, and he knows a lot of the inside stuff that went on. I like him as somebody who's very credible with this information. The problem is when they get there, they find out the actual facts, and they really can't say certain things because now they know the entire story. So are some individuals that are high profile being protected? I think so, especially when they were utilizing Jeffrey Epstein to be an asset for the CIA and possibly Israel. So these are interesting things. But he did implicate Bill Clinton. Now, Bill Clinton, we all know, he was on a plane several times. He actually flew around with Jeffrey Epstein during a whole African tour for about a month. They were together. And he also implicated him and Hillary Clinton in the whole investigation. Check out what he had to say about Bill Clinton.
And a rape occurred. But that can't be said for Clinton, and it can't be said for others. While the Clintons were on the plane, while Bill Clinton was on the plane, there were rapes that occurred.
So you heard right there that Bill Clinton was involved when things were happening with young ladies. So why isn't this guy getting subpoenaed? Why isn't this guy getting having to testify in front of Congress? This is like a huge story and no one's covering it. James O'Keefe does, because James O'Keefe is like the Superman of investigative journalism. And he's doing what the regular mainstream media, legacy media, is not doing. He's getting these facts, going after people undercover and having them just confess to these things and the information that they know when they're not even being watched. They're just kind of spewing out to a pretty girl, not knowing they're being recorded the entire time. You can see on his briefcase, on his backpack, that he had a FBI patch on his backpack. So he's obviously a legit individual. And I read a whole book on this guy, Perversion of Justice, that he was quoted many times. And the problem with Alex Acosta, what happened, the sweetheart deal with Jeffrey Epstein, was he got a sweetheart deal. The judge that was supposed to sentence him was replaced at the very last minute. Jeffrey Epstein had a deal in place that none of the victims in this case were going to testify. So it was very strange how this deal got in place. Part of it was that I read, now this is just stuff that I read, that Hillary Clinton was going to run for president. And Bill Clinton's name was tied into Jeffrey Epstein really thick. It was a thick intertwining with Bill Clinton. They did not want Jeffrey Epstein, with that stuff coming out in 2003, 2004, to be tied with Bill Clinton because Hillary Clinton was wanting to run for president. So they helped him sweep that on the rug. I don't know if the Clintons did it in fact, but listen, let's all be real. The Clintons are huge, especially in the early 2000s. They had a lot of power. The whole Clinton Foundation and all that stuff. They had a significant amount of power, a significant amount of influence, and this is what happens. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know how much that is factual, but the information that I've read about it, that makes a lot of sense. That Jeffrey Epstein was given a sweetheart deal and everything was sealed and closed by these 3 federal judges that were appointed by Obama because they did not want that stuff coming out and tainting Hillary Clinton's run for president. Now we'll see what happens. Hopefully these things start coming out. But there's a little bit of a there. And this is interesting. James Queef got the guy who was the actual investigator of this whole thing. And he was given all the information that we aren't able to find anywhere else. So if you guys see this, make sure you share these clips and make sure you share this video and this podcast so other people can find out and get some actual factual evidence that we are seeing from the actual federal DOJ prosecutor, Glenn Prager. And you can look him up. You can look him up and you can find out, yes, this guy was in fact the investigator for the Epstein case in 2005. Now, Joy Reid, the fired CNN host, the blonde-haired lady, she has a new podcast coming out, and she was being interviewed by a lady, and they were talking about a new podcast coming out that she's, going to get out the word and has to be an activist and is going to be really, hard charging information and getting the stuff out that people aren't hearing right now, which is funny because the legacy media is constantly saying all the bad stuff there is and never saying anything good stuff because they know 97% of all the information that comes out about Donald Trump is all negative. We know that. They know that. That's just the way it is. That's how they do it. But she has a new podcast. And it was funny. I'm going to play a little clip for you because she was talking about how the Trump, basically the Trump administration is trying to go back to the 1950s or the early 19th century when we had black butlers and that people were oppressed. And it doesn't make any sense because what she says is we're trying to go back to when we had no income tax. Yes, we are trying to go back to when we had no income tax. Everybody in this country doesn't want income tax. And the funny thing is the tariffs are working at that. And that's the whole thing about the tariffs. And people don't understand that. They don't want to believe it. They believe it's never going to happen, but it is. The magic number is between $700 and $750 billion in tariff revenue every year. Right now, we've taken about $88 billion over the last several years. Now we are way above that number right now. And if we can get to $700, $750 billion in tariff revenue, that is going to replace the $600 billion that we have from federal income tax. Anybody making less than $200,000 will not have federal income tax taken out of their paychecks because of the tariffs. Check out what she says.
They desperately want that world back, if not the 40s, 30s, or the 1890s. So the goal of trying to force the country backwards to that late 19th century or early 20th century, they're very serious about. And one of the reasons they're so serious about it is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes.
Right. She clearly says all the things that we want. Yes, we want to go back to no income tax. We want to go back where things are a lot better in this country. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that at all. And she's basically making the case for everybody that has a common brain in their head, or has any kind of common sense whatsoever, that yes, we want to go back to no income tax. And she's just spewing it right there in front of you. That's exactly what she's saying. But she's trying to spin it like we want racism back. We want to oppress the black people again and just to be a hateful nation. This is, God, these people, that's all they talk about. That's all they get. That's what they're going to do to get people to watch them. But I'm telling you, the left, their shows, they suck. They never do well because they say the same rhetoric over and over and over again. It's always about racism. It's always about hate. It's always about what we're doing wrong. It's never anything good. If you watch Don Lemon on his show, it's never anything good. It's always a got you. He's trying to get people on the street saying how much they don't like Donald Trump. It's always a got you with the left. They can't get their head out of their own ass to try to say, you know what? Let's try to find some positivity with the United States and what's going on with this administration. They can't do that. They're all the cards on the table for them, and that's all they have. They're a one-trick pony. Negativity, negativity, negativity. There's nothing positive about these spins, about these left-wing media people. They sing the same shit over and over again, and they don't do anything different than that. And that's clear what she's saying. She's saying we don't want income tax. Yes, we don't want income tax. That's very clear. We're all about that. And she thinks it's a bad thing. I think that's wonderful. I think everybody that sees that clip, now there's a lot more to it. It's like a 33-minute show, but it's just a bunch of nonsense. And it's about hate. She's going to expose it all. It's funny. So I thought you guys would enjoy that one because Joy Reid, God bless her, man. I don't think anybody's going to be watching her show. They may watch the first few episodes, but she ain't no Megyn Kelly. She's no Megyn Kelly. Now, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, had his meeting today at Quantico, Virginia, with over 800 in attendance. We had generals, admirals, 07s and above, rear admirals, brigadier generals, and their staff were all in this meeting getting their ass chewed up. And I loved it. I literally had goosebumps watching what he said in this video. Check this out.
With physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already.
I absolutely love that. I love that. He's bringing the warfighter back to the United States military, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did a live earlier today, and I did a post. Everybody was complaining about it. Of course, you get those people on TikTok because the left is all over TikTok. The bots are all over TikTok. It's insane. But they're like, oh my God, they're worried about that, worried about shaving. Yeah, we are. A general, a 4-star general, I don't care who you are. You should be able to do PT to the minimum standards that your soldiers should be able to do. Period. Sailors, Marines, every single one of them should be able to be held to the higher standards that a E1 is supposed to have. There's nothing wrong with that. And the whole shaving, clean, yes, the shaving profile is completely blown out of proportion. Blown out of it. The regulations is very clear. And most of it because of black guys. The black guys, when they shave, they have very coarse hair. And their hair, you know, when they cut it short, sometimes it grows inside and you get ingrown hairs and they get the bumps on it, right? Folliculitis. So a lot of them get the shaving profile, but what the regulation states is the area that's you're not supposed to shave is the area that's infected. So if you're infected under here, under your chin, this is where you can let the growth come out. Not a full beard. What I have on my face right now is not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all. This is a thicker beard. But you got these guys with the shaving profiles that grow beards out to here that look like DJ Khaled. It's insane. They're abusing the actual regulation. They're abusing it because the military and the leadership has turned a blind eye to what it's supposed to be like. It's supposed to be able to cut with the clippers, you know, like a 0. That's how much you're supposed to have, just a little bit of stubble out there to keep the hair from growing into your skin. That's it. Beards are not allowed. White guys, come on. It's laughable to see a white guy with that. And here's the thing. How about you learn how to shave? You shave. If you've got coarse hair, and I've got coarse hair, okay? I'm an Hispanic male. I have coarse hair. I can never shave up. I have to shave down with the grain. If you're shaving up and not down with the grain, you're going to get ingrown hairs. Everybody knows that. So a lot of guys that have that folliculitis and get the ingrown hairs, you're shaving too close. Now, of course, by 3 or 4 o'clock, I had a little bit of a shadow, but at first thing formation at 0600, my face looked clean. And that's how I did it. And if you don't understand how to do that, sometimes you got to get special kind of razor blades. Razor blades that have 5 blades on them. But the whole thing about that, getting in shape, shaving your face, getting the grooming standards upright, you can argue with me all you want, guys. There's a standard. There's a standard in our military. It's called uniformity. It's a uniform, right? It's all the same. Everybody's the same. You can't be in formation where a guy with a beard looks like Santa Claus, another guy with an afro, another guy with long hair and a ponytail. It's not uniformity. And it's also for safety reasons. If you're out there in the field and you're getting hit with gas, a deadly gas, some kind of mustard gas, for instance, and you put your mop gear on, you put your mask on, and you can't get a good seal when you have facial hair. That's the whole reason why you have clean shaven, so you can have a tight seal around your face. They need to fix that. And that's what he's doing. And these generals, if you don't like it, you can get out. It's a good way to get them out anyway. We have way too many generals on staff as it is. I think World War II, we had only maybe 40 generals. I don't know the exact number, but we had in World War II, We didn't have as many generals as we have now. We have generals for everything. And he's trying to cut that down. We have a lot of chiefs. And he's trying to trim that down. So if these guys don't want to accept the warrior ethos, too bad. And yeah, people are like, well, it was a waste of money bringing all these generals in and these admirals in. It was a waste of, no, it's not a waste of money. Sometimes in the military, you got to get face to face with your troops. Sending them a memo isn't going to be satisfactory. It is getting in their face. It is getting live and telling them straight up, this is how it's going to be from now on. If you don't like it, every general's got at least 20 years. They could turn in the papers and go work for the Department of Defense somewhere in a civilian contractor. They have a lot of connections, right? They can do that if they want. But this is the new military now. And if you don't like it, you can hit the pavement. And I was a little on the fence with Pete Hegseth. I got to be honest. Not because I didn't think he could do the job. Just some things that he said when he was an actual Fox analyst about, veterans, disability, and how some veterans use the system and get these organizations to help them get the disability claims. He didn't like that. And it's easy for him to say because he was probably making $250,000 a year on Fox. But so yeah, he was able to say that, okay, guys that had disability. But I don't think anybody, whether you use an organization to help you get your disability or not, I don't care. You're a veteran. You deserve every dollar that you have coming to you. I believe it. I didn't like that. But since then, he's actually done a really good job. And he's leading from the front. He can do the push-ups. He can do the sit-ups. He's in his mid-40s. He's not really an old guy. I mean, I'm 52, and I can do it. So I think all the generals that are probably in their late 50s, maybe early 60s, if you're a 4-star, should be able to do at least the minimum PT standards. And I think that's fantastic. And it's not a waste of money. Because doing it in a memo, sometimes it means a lot when you get dressed up and down by the big boss. It has a lot more play. And Walmart has drones. I don't know if you know this or not, but Walmart is using drones to deliver the goods to your house. Right now, they've done over 100,000 different drone drops throughout the country. They've got places like Atlanta, Charlotte, Houston, Orlando, Tampa, and it's fast delivery. I mean, when you order, you're seriously getting your products in about 30 minutes from the time that you order. So it helps with their speed and convenience. The promise is ultra fast delivery of items you forgot: milk, eggs, medicine. Now they can't deliver anything that's over 10 pounds. So you can't get a flat screen TV yet, but I'm sure it's coming. It's a competitive edge to compete with Amazon and other logistic retailers. Having aerial delivery is a huge game changer for them right now, and it's very cost efficient and scaling. While per delivery costs today can be really high, like oil, gas prices, things like that, delivery trucks, paying somebody to deliver products, scaling and automation, more drones, better routing may bring the cost down. And it's also automated. So these drones they're autonomous. So nobody's flying them. They do have FAA people monitoring the flight patterns of these drones. So they're just not running amok, but it's pretty cool. Check this out. This is pretty interesting. That's not the coolest thing you've seen. I think that's so cool, man. They even have them there like on a zip line or a string that they drop the parachute as they're flying over. It drops it and hangs on a parachute. I don't know if I want that flying over my head, if you're not paying attention to it. But yeah, this is a new age, guys. Cryptocurrency. Better start paying attention to cryptocurrency because that's the way you're going to be paying for things now. And now you got drones dropping off items at your house. Now, like I said, it can't be more than 10 pounds. They're still working on it. But can you imagine? You're going to look up, you're going to hear bzzz, bzzz, you're gonna be buzzing. You're gonna have buzzing going all over your house all day long. Just lining up, going to people's houses, dropping off products. If you forget a gallon of milk, you forget a gallon of milk. I wonder if they got to put in like a freezer bag or something like that to drop it off. And it's it's within a couple of miles. Like maybe I think it's 6 miles round trip. So if you live more than 3 miles away, you're not gonna be able to get the drones yet. But it's coming. You're gonna have drones the size of a Volkswagen dropping stuff off to you. So I'm sure probably in the next 5 to 7 years, you're gonna have flat screen 86, 120-inch TVs getting dropped off at your house. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. I'm Eric T, the Eric T Conversation. Make sure you click, subscribe, and join the conversation. Have a good one.